say thank you for saying yes to this video series on tapping into your intuition. It's actually the series is going from zero to intuitive. What I'm going to start to teach you today is basically, this is lesson one on how to, open up to who you truly are. And when we start to go down this path, this isn't your natural state, your natural born state of being. So we're going to start from the beginning. So the beginning basically is that you have to start to see within your own belief system who you truly are. I wrote a book on this, and there's three questions that I wanted to answer in there. And one is, who am I? The second question is, where am I? And then the third question is, what really happens when we exit or when we go on to the other side? So when you start to really tap into who you truly are, you start to open up to, the 90% of the energy frequencies that are all around us. Now, all of us are actually pinging out a signal, and when you start to see the frequencies that we're interacting with, it's how you're interpreting them. So within these video series, I'm going to start to give you some of the tools that I've used where you can actually start to do this from a beginner's level, an intermediate level, or an advanced level. A lot of times you can revisit these videos. So even if you're a novice, even if you're skeptical and you're somebody that just wants to figure this out and you really don't know where to start, so this is a really good starting point for anyone that is really diving into some of this metaphysical stuff. If you're an adept that wants to, broaden more your horizons within your own intuitive abilities, or if you're just someone that wants to have more of that, connection, that intuitive connection within your daily workspace. You know, if you've got a career and you're trying to just more tap into that, or your creativeness. So when we look at the actual body itself, with the brain is actually working on two sides, and we've got the analytical side, which is the lists of things to do. You know, get up, go to work. I got this to do. I got to feed the kids. I've got to come home. I've got to go to the gym. That's more of the analytical side. So when you're at work, we've got these two frequencies here. So let's just say we've got the left side. Okay, so the left side of the brain, and then we've got the right side. Okay, so the left side of the brain is the lists. Okay, so it's going to be giving you a lot of things to do. Okay, and then the right side is more this intuitive feeling. This is a feeling side. So the feeling of your environment. So this is also the emotional side. So you're getting interactions with people where you're starting to feel them. This is more, I've got to do this, 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 and this. And this is basically, you're getting into the good feelings, the bad feelings, and they'll toggle back and forth. So they'll just keep bouncing back and forth. And we've got this body-mind meat suit that we're all operating in, which actually has an antenna. Okay, so you've got this energetic body, which actually has this protective energetic layer, okay, which also has an opening here to the higher aspects, which you have connection to. So you're always connected 24/7. Most of us think we're not. So that's the brain. So basically, the left side of the brain is always saying, typically, when it comes to the feeling side, is always trying to, negotiate. It's always trying to say no. No, that can't happen. That doesn't really fit in my belief system. That doesn't really fit into my parameters of what I've been brought up to believe. So when we have this energetic bubble, it's actually receiving. So it's receiving and sending. So we're receiving all of these signals, okay, within our environment. And we've got this energetic overlay, which is the chakra body, okay? And where most of the information that's coming in that you're starting to interpret is within the third eye. Now, I've got a lot of students that are asking, can you open the third eye? what are tricks and tips on how to actually make sure that is open. So when we start to, I guess, filter or clear, okay, so emotional clearing is a great technique. What we're putting into the body, because the body itself is also docking a lot of frequencies. So right now, as I'm talking to you, we're looking at a beta frequency. So we're working on a sine wave. So it's working on this. Let's go on the left side. So it's working on this bigger wave. Okay, so this is beta. And then the right side, which is the intuitive side, is more quick. So it's more or less like that. So that is more in like in a delta theta. Okay, very similar to when you're sleeping. So you get into a sleep state. Sometimes when you wake up, you're able to recall your dreams. You're like, wow, I saw this image, that type of thing. Now, when you're interpreting the frequencies within your body, a lot of times they're going to be images. So it's an image. Okay, so the image is basically using your Rolodex of what you've known since you've been a little kid. So, when we're growing up, we're being shown what a car looks like, or we're being shown what a house looks like. That's why we're going to school, and they're showing shapes, circles, squares, that type of thing. So these are images that we have within our database of our information. Now, what becomes very confusing is that the body itself is always, within the environment, working from that list. Okay, so that makes sense, this doesn't make sense, I can't interpret that, I can't interpret this. Now there's actually a great story out there about when the Europeans started to conquer America, and one of the stories is basically the reference point of when the Indians saw the actual large ships coming closer towards the actual shore. They could only see the actual body or the person or the European coming off the ship, but they couldn't see the ship because they didn't have any point of reference. They had their canoes and that type of thing, but they couldn't see the larger ship. They could only see that the body of water was starting to move, but they couldn't interpret or decode. Okay, so this is a very, very important word here, decoding the actual environment. Okay, so when you start to decode the frequency, all right, which is basically your interpretation. Now, my interpretation is different from what your interpretation is. So when I say to you, if I close my eyes and I get into an intuitive reading and I see an apple to me could mean, teaching, could be also nutrition. For somebody else, it means something, it could be nature, that type of thing. So when you start to look at how you're interpreting or decoding the information that is coming in, okay, from your environment, okay, because it's constantly, I can tell you this, we're being bombarded by information, especially if you're sitting in front of a TV, or you're listening to music, even within the environment. You can't even look at your cell phone when you're getting your Wi-Fi without being bombarded with the actual Wi-Fi signal. Now, even they've got these HD antennas now that you can actually pick up free signals. So there's constant signals being pushed out into the environment, such as TV signals, radio signals, waves, that type of thing. So your body is actually interpreting these signals, and sometimes if you're very sensitive, because I can tell you this, everybody has a sensitivity to the environment, and it's all dependent on how you're coping with it. So if you're more of an empath, you're almost like a little sponge, so you're absorbing information, okay, energetic information from somebody, from a handshake, from a hug, even when somebody talks to you. You can even just be sitting nice and still, and you're picking up the information from some of your coworkers that are actually in the next cubicle or in the next room. So when you start to interpret that information, that is basically what a reading is. So your interpretation of the environment. So the environment is always giving you signals. The best place to clear the signal, okay? So basically you want to start to look at, we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff in later videos as well, but I'm just going to give you some overviews here. Energetic maintenance, which is basically starting to clear all of the, I guess, the overload, okay? Because this antenna, so think of yourself like a tube, okay? So you're almost like a cup, all right? And depending on what you're picking up energetically, okay, this can actually start to get filled up or overflowed, okay? And sometimes people are interpreting that as anxiety because they're getting some signals that are mostly around the heart chakra, and they're getting anxiety, and they're starting to feel heart palpitations and that type of thing because their cup is starting to become too overloaded. and they need to discard it, release it. I know with me, sometimes I'll get into certain even time frames within the month, within the year, where I have to just start journaling or writing, because if I don't, I'm just too energetically amped and I can't do my work or I can't function properly, so I need to release this. Now, a lot of times, there's great techniques on releasing where you can actually go into the environment. So the environment, that's why you see a lot of gurus, teachers, talking about nature. So when we're in the natural state, or the natural environment, okay, it's actually picking out a signal of 7.83 megahertz. Actually hertz, sorry. 7.83 hertz. That's the actual hum of the planet system. They call it the shamanic resonance. So the hum of the planet is where you're grounding. So this is a grounding frequency. When we get into a lot of the Wi-Fi, cell phones, the stuff in the environment, it actually pushes us up to more about over 14 hertz, which is more of an agitation. It's actually too much information, too fast. And if you even notice too, even with you know, the way the technology is rolling, a lot of the stuff in the environment, so it's like you just don't have enough hours in the day. There's just too much stuff going on. There's too much stuff that is constantly at you, especially if you've got family and kids, and this is where the stress component starts to come in. So the stress part of it is more over here, okay? So stress is over here. The feeling component is wanting to feel good and get rid of this bad part of it. So the brain is always looking for wants, needs, and desires. So it's always doing this forward motion, okay? So it's always going this way, and then we're always pushing away pain. I don't want to deal with that. I don't need to. There's too much of that. I gotta start to, I guess, prioritize, okay? And that's where the brain will start. So we're going back and forth all the time, and when we start to see the two frequencies that are here, okay, so we're in a duality, which is a positive and negative frequency, so that's yes, no, right, wrong, good or bad. So we're pushing off these two poles, okay, so we're getting bombarded on one side and then the other side, and it's all based on how you're protecting yourself. Now, you can use a lot of different techniques for this. There's great crystals out there, shungite, tourmaline. There's another one out there. There's pendants, biopendants, that can actually test them for the actual muscle tests within the body. Even use your own body as a pendulum, where I do this with some of my healing techniques, where I'll just, when I'm on the table with a client, is that I can actually feel my body move in a certain direction, yes, no, that type of thing, where I'm actually feeling the frequency and my body will move in a different way. So that's the way that I'm interpreting it. Now, just the way that I'm interpreting it doesn't mean that's the way that you're going to interpret, but that's another technique that you can use, that you start to practice. So practicing, knowing what are your thoughts and what are the thoughts within the environment that you're picking up. So you're able to see things based on your actual image, okay? When I'm teaching students, I can tell you, you know, you've got the different clairs, you know, clairsentient, clairaudient, they get the feeling one. So feeling the frequency, a lot of people will either have one or two of these different ways of interpreting the information. So the image and then the feeling, okay? So the feeling is very key. Now, a lot of times what we're putting into our body is to actually shut off that feeling. So that feeling, you know, if you're heavily using drugs, alcohol, could be stuff within the environment where you're too more on the left side, which is the stress component, where you just can't feel, right? You're just numbed right out. A lot of antidepressants do that. They actually just numb out the actual feeling frequency in order for you to just stay zero. So that's the place of no feeling, basically. But what the problem is that when you come off of those, you start to drop more into the bad zone, because you actually start to neutralize, okay? So you're now into that 0 point, so it starts to drop lower because you've shut it off for so long, and then you got to start to bring yourself back. So nature itself is the natural state. That's, you know, that's where we came from. We're coming from nature. And then now we have two worlds here, basically. We have the natural state, and then we also have the synthetic state, which is very similar to, you know, we've got cell phones, TVs, all the synthetic environment, especially if you're in a cubicle. You've got a lot of stuff that's coming down from you, from the lighting, the fluorescent lights, which is actually coming into your frequency, which is docking, okay, within your auric field. So suppressing the actual feeling or the interpretation of the environment in order for you to just almost be numbed out. So if you do work in that type of environment and you're just feeling suppressed, depressed, okay, suppressed, depressed, pushed down, just start, a lot of times the body will start to manifest disease. especially with stress, stress leave, that type of thing. But when the light, the natural photonic light, will actually cleanse and clear, and that's why people get a little bit more sad in the wintertime and so on. It'll start to clear a lot of this junk, okay? It's just energetic junk, okay, within your auric field. And that's why people love going on vacations and stuff like that, right? Because you're in the sun. And also, this is another one, salt, natural salt, not table salt, natural salt such as Himalayan salt, sea salt, very similar to going into the ocean. When you come out of the ocean, that's actually pushing off a negative ion. So it'll actually release a lot of this energetic junk out of your aura for you to see clearly. So if you're being suppressed a lot, a lot of fog is happening within this space where you're just like, you just can't get anything right, you're forgetting things, that type of thing, because you're too energetically overloaded, okay, to be able to see. So you're looking through foggy glasses or a foggy lens. So when you do some energetic maintenance, such as a salt bath, you start to release this frequency, or if you go outside in nature, go for walks, start to take your shoes off, right? The worst thing we have on our feet are actually our shoes. So if we think of ourselves as an electrical magnetic beam, okay? So the electrical magnetic beam, which is that actual antenna, okay? So we've got this antenna signal, okay? And then it plugs in, okay, into the planet, and it's actually receiving a lot of stuff from the ethers, from the heavens and so on. So it's actually plugged into the planet, and when you start to do your grounding techniques, that's why meditation is great for that. All meditation is basically, and you're going to love this one, it's an invitation to stop to struggle. It's basically saying, I'm going to take some time, instead of this stress and this list of things that I have to do, I'm going to take some time now for me, which is basically saying yes to the feeling, okay? Feeling me. This is where this all starts, is that you start to feel yourself, okay? And when you're not yourself, when you're running around with your head cut off, I got to get up, go to work, that type of an energetic outward expression, okay? I'm doing a lot of feelers do a lot of things for everybody else, but then they can't take time to actually start to do things for themselves. So when you go outside and you're starting to ground, taking your shoes off, okay? Think of even when they talk about accidents, when an electrical wire comes down and it hits the car, and the people in the car are actually safe because there's rubber on the tires, right? Because the actual electrical signal cannot ground itself, it just stays onto the car. So think of all the electrical signals that are positive ions, okay, that are actually my fault there, that's actually negative ions. The positive ions are part of the environment, which is coming off cell phones, Wi-Fi, and that type of thing. But the photonic light, the positive photonic light that is coming in, will actually start to come through the actual antenna, which is your chakra system, okay, and then it'll stop. And you need to start to, a lot of people need to do exercise. That's why they're energetically starting, because if it stops, it'll actually start to rotate back up in through the suit. So you're starting to get this overload of energy. I can tell you this, if I'm meditating too much, or if I'm doing, trance channeling, that type of thing, or I'm being out in a meditation for 3 hours, or I'm outside and too much in that environment, I can be too energetically charged. I get like that too when I'm doing some fasting, when I get into the states of energetic detoxes, when I start to stay away from the cell phones, the Wi-Fi, that type of thing, no TV, no music, no interaction with people. Okay, a lot of shamans do this, where you go on a retreat. You may have come across this, where they actually put you in a room with 200 people, lock the doors, you're in there for 10 days, you can't talk to anybody, okay? And when you're talking, this is an energetic, right? I'm energetically, that's a wave that your ears are starting to interpret the way that I'm speaking to you, and that's what's docking, right? So even my tone, my speech, okay, is a wave signal, okay? So beta, right? And then if you notice sometimes when I'm actually teaching, and people notice this even when I do readings, I start to talk really fast because I'm really, really up there, okay, in the higher realms, getting the information down into this frequency, and I got to slow it down a bit. So when you're starting to, I guess the first step, if you're going to start from the beginning, is to start to watch, okay, what you're doing within your environment. So if you really want to tune in to the feeling frequency, okay, which is where your actual intuitive abilities are, which is, we all have access to this, is start to see how you're interacting with the environment. So if you want to do a test, okay, so start to test this out. Try this. I did this a couple weeks ago, and I actually started to see, wow, this is crazy how connected I am to that cell phone. Do an actual cell phone detox. A lot of people talk about the body detox. Start to do a cell phone detox and see how you feel. Don't touch the cell phone. Actually, don't even go on Facebook. If you're able to, if you're addicted to certain things, so your addictions are your distractions from this, okay, from the feeling frequency, okay? So don't go on the internet. Don't use your cell phone, okay? Don't turn on your TV, and do that for 24 hours, okay? Start to, and then you can go from 24 hours to 2 days to 3 days, and then you can start to sit. It's almost like you're going to wean yourself off, okay, of this constant bombardment, because all of this is choice. Nobody's asking you or forcing you to pick up your phone. Nobody's forcing you to actually go on the internet. Nobody's forcing you to watch TV, but it becomes an addiction, right? So start to see where your addictions are starting to pull or maneuver you, okay, around, okay, which is actually pushing and putting a lot of thought patterns. I can tell you this, even with songs, new songs that come out where they got the three, they'll repeat a lyric over and over. It's basically over and over again, more 3 times. So that lyric, if I'm not energetically clear, will stay within my field for a couple of days, and I'm like, man, I can't get that stupid song out of my head because it's in my field. It's actually registering within the auric field, okay? So when you're looking at stuff to do with when you were a little kid to who you are today, if you've had some trauma, the trauma component will actually place, you know, if it was verbal abuse coming from your parents, could be anything from a physical abuse, even going to school and being traumatized or bullied and that type of thing. It will actually place a terror rip within your aura, okay, which, you know, if somebody can see, such as myself and that type of thing, will actually feel the energetic potential or the opening, which is where the energy starts to release or leak. Now, when you become too overloaded with frequency, because when it starts to leak, then that's when you start to feel depressed, suppressed. So the energy, it's almost like your battery's running low, right? So there's a lot of things in the environment, such as things that we can't see, which is these lower frequencies that are plaguing, or they're more like mosquitoes or parasitic thought forms that will actually feed from those frequencies. Okay, so then you get into the spirit attachments. A lot of stuff will actually pull from that. So when you start to do some energetic clearing, and you can research a lot of this stuff on the internet. I do a lot of this stuff as well, where you're doing cord cutting sessions, Reiki sessions, emotional clearing, soul retrieval, that type of thing. All that stuff is actually doing is basically starting to clear or put a bandage over and actually close that up. Okay, so just to recap here for you. So the first step that you want to do, this is lesson 1, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're just going to put down a list. So if you want to get a pen and a paper, just write this down, okay? So what you want to try and do, this is baby steps, is just basically, because you got to start to feel this. I know I can talk to you until I'm blue in the face, but start to look at your environment, okay? If you're sitting in front of a screen all day, a computer screen at work, that's very hard. You're not going to quit your job. So you may want to put some things around your actual computer screen to absorb the actual frequencies that are coming off of it. You know, you can use crystals for that. You can get yourself an energetic pendant. There's a great one out there called Q-Link. Put that on your body. That's just going to create the actual bio shield. It's a bio shield, okay, in order for the energy not to dock. So if you have never done any energetic clearing, then you're probably have these openings where the energy is starting to seep in, okay? So when you get into people that are very depressed or low, they'll start to push out this frequency, and then you get into arguments and that type of thing. So they're speaking because their energetic potential is too high, so they push it out this way. So that's why you get into arguments with people and so on. Or there's an energetic match, which is based on the law of attraction. So let's just say you were abused as a kid, and then you're interacting with a coworker, and you don't really know that person, and they were a very similar situation, but you guys can't get along for some reason, and you're just like back and forth fighting, pushing back and forth, but you don't really know her history and so on. It's because the energetic potential is a match, and it's trying to get your attention so it can come out of your system. So first step, you start to look at the environment, maybe start to do an energetic detox with your cell phone. You know, you still got to be able to interact with people and so on, but you can actually give yourself that time or space, maybe do it on a weekend or something, where you don't touch it for a while, okay, or you only touch it within certain hours, you shut it off, you don't have access to it. Start to go out in nature, okay, go for walks. be around animals. Animals are great. Animals are very, I guess, healing. They'll absorb a lot of this energetic potential off of you in order for the tube, okay, to become clearer. Okay, so this space starts to become clear. Okay, the more it becomes clear, I can tell you this is never completely clear. I'm never completely clear, but the more that it is at a lower space where you're not too energetically charged, when you're doing readings for anyone, or if you're trying to interpret some of that information, it'll place it within this emptiness. Okay, so the emptiness is the space for you to see the information that is yours or coming from a client, or if you're sitting with somebody and you're doing a reading on them. When that image starts to come in, then you'll be able to interpret it. I'll give you an example. I had a lady one time come into my office, didn't say a word. I was already in this energetic potential because I was setting myself up to, I guess, do the reading. So I want to make sure that I'm not energetically ramped up. So I'm receiving her frequency. I'm ready to do my work and to sit with the client. And when she came into the room, she didn't say a word. The first thing that I felt or saw, and I said to her, I said, "You want to know if your husband's cheating on you?" And she said, "That's exactly why I came to you." Now, the only reason I got that information is because the first thing that popped in was that husband's frequency. And when I interpret that, I don't have a husband. So I knew that information was coming from her. Also, the space that I do my work in is energetically clear. So I don't have a lot of this distortion. I don't have cell phones in there. I don't have TVs. I don't have anything within that space. It's very clean, cleansing, clear. It's actually more of a higher vibrational frequency. That's why people use meditation CDs. That pushes you more into a theta. Even the tones and the frequencies that are being used in CDs is more for the entrainment of the mind, keeping the mind in the busyness. So the left side to be busy. Okay, the left side is always going to be busy. It always wants something to do. Okay, so if you sit it to the side, there's a lot of techniques talking about placing the child. Okay, sitting the child down, which is the child frequency within you. Okay, almost like saying, okay, well, I'll get to you later. All of the lists, I'll get to that later. But for now, I'm going to be in this space of feeling, right? So when she came into my office, I started to feel the frequency. I started to feel her because I wasn't in my head, which is the left side, meaning I got to get up, go to work. I wasn't thinking about that. I had placed it to the side, and then now I'm able to receive her information and able to give a proper reading. So when you start to see the environment for what it is and start to clear the environment, okay, best practices, right? Here's another thing that you may want to start to look at is if you've got a lot of stuff in the environment, everything is holding a frequency. So when you're looking at even that TV show that's out there, it's called Hoarders. That TV show, there's a lot of like stuff in the environment, so it's like it's too overwhelming. Okay, so feng shui in your place, getting rid of some stuff, starting to clear some things. You want to make sure that. Just give me a second. That the space that you're in is clear, especially if you're going to bed. You want to make sure that that space is energetically clear because you're getting a lot of your information in your sleep state and you're able to retain some of that during the day, okay, which is your higher self, and we'll get into some of that in later lessons when we're connecting to the higher parts of you, the energies around you that are helping and assisting you. So to recap, we've got two sides to the actual frequency within the environment that we're actually interpreting. Okay, so the beta stuff. Okay, so a lot of that is the sine waves that are coming off TV, cell phone, and so on. That beta frequency is almost being hijacked sometimes with a lot of the marketing, a lot of the stuff with the news, that type of thing. So if you're watching TV and news and watching horror movies, scary movies, you know, a lot of this violent type of movies, then your frequency is going to be more low. Okay, that lower frequency is going to keep you more in these lower chakras. The space that you want to be more in is in the open heart. Okay, when you're in the open heart, the third eye is able to interpret the frequency, so it's going to open. Okay, the only reason people think that they can't see through that, you know, when I do some of the energetic clearing, is basically because they have too much energetic garbage, and so when I ask them for the color, they'll give me black. And black, if I didn't want you to see anything, I put you in a closet, turn the light off, you'd see black. But if you start, I have some clients that'll get into different colors within the chakra system, such as red, get into greens, yellows, that type of thing. A lot of people will get into like the purples and the hues and that type of stuff, or even white light, because they're more operating in the higher chakras, okay? And a lot of new kids that are being born today are coming in without any of that programming, so they're very intuitive. And I can tell you this, even when you were a kid, you had no programming until you are who you are today. So the programming from when you, and basically this is a deconstructive process. So when you're really trying to tune in to who you truly are, you start to clear. And it's basically remembering, and that's why I even say to clients, this is a gentle surrender, which is surrendering to who you truly are. When you're in a session or when you're in a meditative state, you have to start to feel or act or, I guess, get into that childlike frequency, okay? There's a lot of esoteric teachings, even in the Bible and stuff, act like a child or be like the child, okay? When we are the adult, okay, the adult frequency is all about, and rightfully so, you got to be responsible. You've got things to do. You got, house, kids, cars, the whole 9 yards. You got mortgages. You got bills to pay. All that stuff. Okay, that stuff is there. Okay, but don't let it overly consume you. And you can go back to it, but you have to start to take the time to be on this side, and that's the feeling good stuff. That's the doing some exercises. So just to recap again here for you, we're working with a beta and a theta frequency. More of the stuff about intuitive information comes from the theta state and every level in between based on how much energetic garbage you're holding, okay? So that's why sometimes this energetic garbage doesn't actually take over and this side starts to push through. So that's why people get these overwhelming wow factors. They're like, wow, why did I see that? Or I saw something move. Or they'll sit there and say, okay, well, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. I can tell you this, the energetic frequencies that we're decoding, and you can research this, go online, we're actually decoding light. So the light frequency, you only have a very narrow band. We're actually only decoding 10%, so you don't see infrared, gamma ray, X-ray. So that's a very narrow band of what is actually here, okay, which is in the environment that you can actually see. So a lot of people will feel the environment. They'll feel like something move or touch, or mostly around the head space. It feels like a spider web, so it's an energetic I guess, feeling. When you're too over-energetically bombarded with the environment or stress, or especially with food, a lot of people that have a lot of energy around the gut, okay, that's protecting the first chakra, okay, that's fight or flight or survival energy, okay, so if you're going through some things within your space about survival and so on, that energetic layering, okay, will start to shadow or not allow you to see, okay, where you're getting more clearer information, clearing the vehicle, okay? So the first step is you have to clear your environment, which is basically start to watch and observe how energy is actually docking within your environment, okay, which is coming in through the eyes, coming in through the ears, okay, coming in through the mouth, okay? Even when you're speaking, okay, there's a back and forth, okay? And also when we're putting food, okay, energetic food, that's when you're eating, your body is looking for a charge, an energetic charge, okay? When you're getting that energetic charge, and if you're eating meat, that's a dead frequency, okay? So that's the best diet to be on is actually a raw food diet or a vegan diet. Now, it's very hard to maintain that, so I wouldn't suggest you doing that right off the bat. So if you wanted to do some baby steps right now, start to look at your environment, start to detox what's going on in your environment, moving some things around, that type of thing. Even changing the environment where you shift some of the furniture around to move and allow the frequency to go through your environment because you're walking through there all the time, right? The next step would be your body, okay? So we'll talk about this in other segments, but you want to maybe do a detox within the body where you start to release a lot of that stuff around the gut, okay? So the dead food, the dead frequency, which is still holding within that lower base, okay? That lower base is to keep you at the lower chakras. So if you're getting a lot of red frequencies when you're meditating or the red colors, it's because you got too much stuff hanging out there. When you're becoming more lighter, right, more clear, then you're starting to feel better. You're starting to raise your frequency up through the body, okay? So that's why when you're doing the primordial breath, you're breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, okay? That's the first thing we did when we came into the dimension is we took our first breath. So when you take a breath, a lot of people aren't even breathing properly. A lot of people are doing this, where they're walking around holding their breath. So when you're in nature, you're in that 7.83 hertz, which is you're out of the environment of the 14 hertz, okay? The 14 hertz environment is positive ions connecting with you continuously, just hitting you, bang, 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 and it's constantly putting those actual, and if you had a tear or rip, you're getting more of it, okay? So when you come out of that 14 hertz environment, this could even be your house, could even be your room, and then you place it more into a 7.83 hertz, that's the grounding. There's even little gadgets out there, like there's even a grounding blanket where you can actually put the blanket on you and just plug it into the grounding wall, the plug into the wall where there's a grounding prong, and that'll go right into the earth from your house. So there's a good book out there called Grounding. You can research that. So when you start to clear the environment or make your environment more natural, okay, you have some nice music on, you can put some incense, that type of thing. That's the scent. Okay, you notice a lot of people, high level monks, shamans, they'll use the incense. That's for the smell. So that's docking, changing the frequency within the body. Okay, which changes the frequency into more of a theta. A lot of people will use oil. They'll put that on the third eye, which will change the frequency from a beta to a theta. Okay, you see a lot of this stuff in metaphysical stores and so on, the oils and that type of thing. Getting into the natural state. That's why people gravitate towards crystals, because crystals come from the natural kingdom. And then the crystal will actually amplify your state, or it actually helps and assists with releasing a lot of this energetic garbage. They're almost like they clear it for you. It's like clear quartz, that type of thing. The shungite, the tourmaline will start to take some of that up. Now, it's not a light switch, okay? So you got to take this, be realistic about this. If there's too much energetic garbage in your environment, it's not just going to be like a cosmic flush, or you got to be able to do things incrementally, and you don't want to do too much too fast. So you want to get onto a regiment. Maybe say, okay, for next week, this day I'm going to start to be more of an energetic detox with the phones and that type of thing. Next thing I'm going to do is more looking at my diet. When you start to look at your diet to be more alkaline than acidic. Okay, so the alkaline diet basically is the vegan diet. Okay, our bodies are 75–80% water. So when you're looking at that tube and there's too much energetic garbage, especially with what we're putting into our body with the food and so on, it actually retains and holds the frequency, and the sugar part of it is actually the toxins that we're putting into our body. So if you're drinking a lot of alcohol as well, alcohol has lots of sugar in it. So the acidity diet will actually block, because there's too much contaminants in the body. If you're eating too much sugar or candies and that type of thing, cookies, desserts, all that stuff. Okay, I'm not saying you got to get rid of any of that stuff, but take it in moderation. Maybe have a cheat day. Okay, but don't be doing it all the time. Especially if you're drinking coffee and so on. There's a lot of acidity in coffee. So you change your diet. Okay, and we'll get into some of those components in later videos on proper diet and so on, but I'm just giving you the first lesson for today. So when you start to look at a detox to your body, which is mostly bowels, you want to start with the bowels. The organs are connected to the chakras. The chakras are connected to that energetic potential. So every time you put something into the body that isn't alkaline, it's going to block the actual filter, such as the liver, the kidneys and so on. It's going to put that actual grid over top so you can't see clearly. Okay, so you're looking through foggy glasses. When you start to release some of that, you're going to get more of this energetic potential, so that this is actually opened up for you, so you can see or feel. Okay, you want to feel things, right? You start to feel your environment. When you start to do that part of it, okay, then you're going to start to get into more of a meditation, I guess, practice. And the meditation practice that you want to start to look at is basically have a space in your home where you can go to on a continuous basis. Now, meditation isn't sit there for 3 hours. You can do it for 2 minutes. Okay, so 2 minutes, especially at the beginning, what you want to do is basically start to talk, which is a frequency that you're going to push out. Okay, you're pushing. This is where law of attraction comes in and so on, because you're going to interact with the environment, such as this, I guess, virtual reality computer simulation that we're in. This gets into a lot of other stuff, but we're going to command the universe. What do I need to see today to help me connect, to be more clearer, so I can start to feel? Okay, so to be more intuitive, it's a feeling frequency. So I've given you 3 or 4 things there to be able to start off. Okay, so you're going to start off with that, and I'm going to meet you on the next video, and then we'll see where we're going to start talking about more about getting into meditations, how to start to interpret certain signals, and I'll see you on the other side.